Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's John Campea, and this is a companion video. What's a companion video? I'm glad you asked. A companion video is, see, every day on the John Campea Show and on Open Mic, we take live questions, but sometimes we don't have time to get around to all the live questions that get sent in those days. So what I do is I gather up those questions and I make sure they do get answered in a video. So that's why we make these companion videos addressing all those questions we didn't have time for on the live show. So, without any further ado, let's dive right into it. And the first question we're getting caught up on today comes to us from NPE94, who writes, do Americans/Canadians pay attention to the BAFTAs at all? Now, I think the BAFTA stands for, I sometimes get this wrong, is the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, I think. I could be wrong about the exact thing of the BAFTAs, but the answer to that is no. Most North Americans do not pay much attention to them. And that's a shame because really, I think they're like the second most important awards other than the Oscars. I think the Oscars are the most important. I honestly think the BAFTAs are the second most important. Then maybe like the SAG Awards, the DGA Awards, the Film Critic Awards, things like that, on and on and on and on. Harry's 7-Eleven in Utah Awards, and then down below Harry's 7-Eleven in Utah Awards is the Golden Globes, just down below the 7-Eleven of Utah Awards. But yeah, so it's a shame. But the reality is most average film, whereas a lot of film fans in North America do pay attention to the Oscars and unfortunately the Golden Globes and things like that. Honestly, most casual film fans have no idea about the BAFTAs, don't know what the BAFTAs are, and that's an unfortunate thing. I mean, they should be paid more attention to, but the reality is they're really not. So that's unfortunate. Next one comes to us from Tortellini at Noon, who writes, to shorten the Oscar broadcast even more, should the Academy consider cutting the performances of all the original songs? See, I've always said you need to cut down on the original songs because as things stand, with every song, a song which, by the way, maybe takes up 1 to 2 minutes of a movie, sometimes just a 30-second clip of a song is used in a movie and it gets nominated, and then honestly, that song is performed longer at the Oscars than it is even in the movie that it's nominated for. So I've constantly said it is a travesty that in the Oscars, the category of Best Song literally gets 4 times the screen time at the Oscars as Best Director does. And Best Director is clearly the most important, is more important out of those two, right? You should give your time to the more important things. That's where your time should go. Something that's less important should get less time. But what happens is Best Song, every song gets a full performance, therefore eating up tons of screen time for the Oscars and literally getting more screen time than the most important awards. And that's silly. Now, do I think they should eliminate it altogether? I mean, I wouldn't be against it if they did, but what I've advocated for is like, instead of every song getting 2.5 minutes to perform, why not have one 2.5-minute segment where all 5 songs get 30 seconds? Like 30 seconds of one song is sung and that transitions into 30 seconds of the next nominee, that transitions into 30 seconds of the next nominee, and you have all 5 performers up. So the first person performs and then it transitions to the second, and then that way, instead of like 10 minutes of screen time being used up for Best Song, you've got like 2.5 minutes. And the song, the category is still getting honored. So look, I'm okay if they cut it all together, to be frank, but I think a good compromise there is just shorten it up to one segment. Have all 5 songs performed in a medley in one segment. I think that's a good compromise and should keep most people happy at any rate. Let's see. Chad Koviduck writes, hey John, I heard in a previous video that you didn't enjoy Cobra Kai as much as some people seem to have. Can you go into more details why? Yeah, it's bad. It's just that simple. There's nothing good about it. Like, and look, my opinion is just my own subjective opinion. It's just my own subjective opinion. That's all. Your subjective opinion may be very different. But you're asking me, why didn't I like it? Well, it's because there was nothing to like. The dialogue was bad. It was cheesy. It was eye-rolling. It was cringeworthy. And I get the nostalgia factor, but once you got past the nostalgia factor, there was nothing quality there. Sorry, that's just the way I saw it. There was nothing of quality there. And look, I was excited for it too. And I think it was a brilliant idea. I think it was an absolutely brilliant idea. I love the premise of it, and looking at it more this time from Johnny's perspective, like everything about it, setting it up, I liked. And then I watched the show, and it often comes down to execution, and I just found nothing was funny in it, nothing was charming, I didn't find anything endearing, the martial arts looked terrible, it was just eye-rolling and cringing, honestly, it felt like a high school drama project. And maybe that's what some of you are looking for, or maybe you saw it completely differently than I did, which is totally fine. It's all subjective, and this is just my own personal subjective opinion. But yeah, man, I didn't find anything about it to like. It was just that bad. But anyway, that's just my opinion. A lot of people disagree with me. And if you haven't checked it out yet, you may still, ignore what I'm saying, because a lot of people seem to like it. So you might want to check it out too, to see if you like it. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean you shouldn't like it. But check it out and see what you guys think. To me, I thought it was kind of a wasted opportunity. NPE94 writes, friends and I debating who best director of all time is. I say Tarkovsky, my friends say Fellini, Kurosawa, Kubrick, Godard, and Wells. Who's right? None of you. Steven Spielberg is the greatest director of all time. Again, that's a completely subjective opinion. But since you're asking me, by far, Steven Spielberg is the best director of all time. Now, that's not the sexy name to say. That's not the cool name to say. But it is nonetheless, in my opinion at any rate, the obvious answer. Look, when you run down his filmography, the amount of films that he's directed that have Best Picture nominations, the amount of nominations he has for Best Director, the all-time classic films that he has directed, the diversity of the films he's directed. Look, let me just pull this up here for a second. Okay. Okay. This is Steven Spielberg. All the same director. All these films from the same director. The Post. Oh yeah, just a bunch of Academy Award nominations. Ready Player One, one of my favorite movies of the year this year. Totally different from The Post. Oh my God, you cannot make two movies more different. Ready Player One and The Post, completely different movies. Lincoln, just won Daniel Day-Lewis an Academy Award for Best Acting. Only got nominated, I think it won Best Picture as well. Crazy. Bridge of Spies won some Academy Awards. War Horse got nominated for Best Picture. The Adventures of Tintin, which a lot of people think is a tragically underrated animated film. Then you get into stuff like War of the Worlds, I thought was great. Munich got nominated for Best Picture. Catch Me If You Can was amazing. AI, Minority Report, Saving Private Ryan, which a lot of people think is maybe his best. I don't think it's his best, but a lot of people think that's his best. Amistad, which is my personal favorite Steven Spielberg movie of all time. I think it's a tragically underrated film by Spielberg. Amistad, 1997. Schindler's List, which is an all-time classic. Jurassic Park, which is an all-time classic. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Empire of the Sun. The Color Purple. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. E.T. Jaws. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. On and on and on. You're never going to find a filmmaker with that kind of filmography. You're never going to find a filmmaker with that kind of filmography. Now again, this is all subjective opinion, and yours may be different. But when you look at the sheer number of all-time classics he's made, the sheer number of films under his guidance that have been nominated for Best Picture, the vast diversity of movies that he's done, from Jaws, greatest shark movie of all time, to Indiana Jones, totally different, to Ready Player One, totally different, to Lincoln, completely different, to Saving Private Ryan, which is completely, there's never been a filmmaker like him. And I doubt there will ever be one like him again. So yeah, you're asking who's right, I'm going to say none of you. I'm going to say Spielberg. I mean, that's just kind of my opinion on that. Again, it's all subjective. You're going to have your opinion. Just because I think differently doesn't mean you're wrong. It's just my opinion, that's all. All right, let's move on here. The Doctor's Blu-ray Reviews writes, if you want to get back into Doctor Who, this year is the best time to get back into Doctor Who as it is all new. Yeah, you know what? I think Doctor 13, I think you wrote that into me before. And that's what I've been hearing. I know this is the first year that they're going to have a female Doctor, which is kind of revolutionary for Doctor Who, just as it is on its own, which is great. But is it like a relaunch? I need some of you guys to email me. Is this season like a relaunch? Is it a reboot? Can I truly just jump into Doctor Who now and I won't be lost because they're ignoring it? What's the deal with that? I'm very curious because I've heard from a couple of people saying that exact same thing. So give me some info, guys. Give me some info. I'm looking forward to hearing it. Okay, next one. Tom Foster writes, Hey, John. Finally saw Ant-Man and the Wasp in the UK. Enjoyed it. Not sure I'd rank it yet. I had to pre-order the Hot Toys for both Ant-Man and Wasp. I mean, Hot Toys, look, Hot Toys are a dangerous addiction, my friend. Be very, very careful. I've only got a couple on my shelf, and I know, like, some people have been asking me, John, Anne gave you permission. She's actually encouraging you to buy that Thanos Hot Toy. Why don't you do it? Because I'm so scared that if I break that seal and buy one, then I'm going to buy 5. You know, the Thanos one's going to arrive, and I'm going to go, oh, and I'm going to get a stiffy, and I'm going to look at it and go, oh, and I'm going to drool, and then I'm going to instantly jump on and order 2 more, you know, and it's an expensive habit to get into, so I'm trying to stay out of it, but yeah, I'm still not 100, no, you know, I am. I like Ant-Man and the Wasp very much. I think it's a fun, entertaining movie, a great palate cleanser movie after the relative heaviness of Avengers Infinity War. But I still think I prefer Ant-Man 1. I still think I prefer Ant-Man 1 over it. So that's where it kind of ranks with me. Meta Puppet 007 writes, "We'll send the jump scare. Add on Twitter, please check. Just sent it." Yeah, actually, so what Meta Puppet's talking about is the other day, there was a news story that came out that YouTube took down an ad that the studio put up for The Nun, the next film in the Conjuring series, because it was just too scary, too shocking. There was this big jump scare in it, and it was disturbing people. I actually kind of thought that was the studio's plan the whole time, because what gets better PR? A new trailer online? Or the news story, the trailer was so shocking for The Nun, they had to pull it down. That gets you more PR. So I kind of think it was all arranged, but whatever. But I hadn't seen it yet, and I said that on the show. I hadn't seen it yet because it got pulled down. And I asked people to send me a link to it. I got like 100 of you guys sent me the links to it. So I'm covered, Meta Puppet. Don't worry about it. I got covered, but thank you so much for that. Thanks for keep having my back. All right, NPE94 writes, Mr. Freeze, more Batman and Robin quotes. Mr. Freeze's Robin. Stay cool, bud boy. Always. I guess you can't get enough of those ones. ZCM Zombie Custom Maps writes, Peter Berg, a good fit for the $6 billion man? Yes. I mean, look, you know what I'm going to say. Any talented director, go for it. Peter Berg is clearly a very talented director. Now, his newest movie, Mile 22, is crap. Let's just call it what it is. His newest movie is crap. But that doesn't undo that before this movie, his last 3 films that he's done with Mark Wahlberg were Lone Survivor, Deepwater Horizon, and Patriots Day. All of them not good, great. All of them great. And since Wahlberg is attached to the $6 billion man project, whenever that's going to happen, if it will ever happen, it seems to make sense. Yes, they tripped up when it came to Mile 22. Didn't work. That movie just flat out did not work. Fine. But that doesn't erase the last 3 in a row they did that were superb. So yeah, if they said they wanted Peter Berg on there to direct a Mark Wahlberg in a $6 billion man film, why not? I mean, there's 20 other directors you can name that I go, yeah, that sounds good too. I'm just get a talented storyteller. That's all I care about. But would he be one of those good ones? Absolutely he would be, I think. NPE94 writes, met Michael Caine. Oh, lucky duck. Met Michael Caine last week. Awesome guy. I would love to meet Michael Caine. I don't think I've ever met Michael Caine. As I think back on it now, I don't think I have. Yeah, man. That's awesome. Like, good for you. I hope you got pictures, because that's amazing. Roll Out the Reels writes, I am doing an Infinity War fan edit. If you could check that out, I made a video about it. I'm adding deleted scenes, reorganizing, and making new scenes. Well, I mean, I don't think I will, because that's a 2.5 hour commitment to sit down and watch, so I'm not really down for that. Honestly, I don't like watching a lot of fan edits. There are a few exceptions, right? The Star Wars de-cheesed edition, fantastic. My buddy who did the Arkham edit of Batman vs. Superman, fantastic. But for the most part, I don't like to watch them because the director's version, the version the studio put out, that's the movie. So normally I don't watch a lot of like special edition or fan edits and stuff like that. But I know a lot of people do, and you just told a lot of people about it. Roll out the reel, so there you go. Let's see. Scare CRS writes, Since Darth Bane is the only canon Old Republic character, and he is canon because he is mentioned briefly, albeit briefly, he is mentioned in one of the final seasons of Star Wars Clone Wars. So he is, and that is canon, so Darth Bane is canon. Since Darth Bane is the only canon Old Republic character, do you think he will appear in a live-action movie if they ever use the Old Republic timeline? Love your show, John. Listen to you every day at work. Well, I mean, that's tricky. Somebody actually brought up Darth Bane the other day. It's tricky because, first of all, if questions are hard. They're tricky to answer. If questions are tricky, because really you can answer anything to an if question. This question is an if built on top of another if. If they ever make a Old Republic movie, another if, could they use a Darth Bane character? So really, the thing about that is you could say anything. Yes, no, maybe, whatever, a million years, 5 years. I mean, you can say anything because it's all about ifs, right? So let's follow this for a second. If they ever make, and that's a whole nother question, but if they ever make a movie that takes place during the Old Republic era, could they use, or do I think he would, or in other words, could they ever have Darth Bane appear? Well, I mean, of course you can. Sure, you can. Will they? I don't know. You don't need to. The Old Republic, look, the Old Republic is not one story. The Old Republic is an era, and a vast era. A long, long ass era. So, you are literally limitless in the stories you could tell if you were to make a Star Wars Old Republic era movie. You're limitless. And just because we know of one character who happened to exist somewhere in that time period, and by the way, there's very little detail about Bane given in those Clone War episodes. And only the few details we have about him in the show are actually canon. None of the other details, like just because they mentioned Darth Bane, that doesn't mean all the things we know Darth Bane in the extended universe stuff is automatically canon. No. The only things that are canon about Darth Bane are those few precious details that they reveal in the Clone Wars episode. Nothing else is canon, just those details. And with that being said, there's really nothing about when in that timeline he is, how long he stuck around, what kind of an influence he had on those eras. None of that is there. So I would say, just because we know about one character who happened to exist in a universe that spans hundreds of thousands of planets during a time period that spans thousands of years, I think it becomes unlikely that they would use them, but they certainly could. They could. But I'll go with unlikely. Not impossible, not almost zero, but unlikely. I'd say I'd give it a 20% chance that if they do an Old Republic movie, and that's a whole nother topic of if, but if they do an Old Republic era movie that would actually have Darth Bane involved, I'll say 20%. That's my guess. Okay, next up, Robert Colley writes, but John, a longtime fan, just wanted to say that I love what you do and appreciate the amount of great content you produce. Keep it filthy, sir. Thank you so much for that, Robert. I really appreciate it. It's always kind of nice when somebody just wants to send something in to say something nice. Thank you, man. That's really cool of you. I appreciate that. All right, Lincoln Johnson writes, just watched A Quiet Place, still my favorite movie of the year, and loved it. I'm a little unsure of the sequel, though. It ended perfectly. What else is there to tell? Well, I mean, the thing about A Quiet Place, and by the way, I don't think they need a sequel, but then again, there's never been a film in history made that needed a sequel. Never happened. Like The Sun Won't Rise Tomorrow if you don't make a sequel to that. There's never been a single movie that needed to be made. There's never been a single sequel that needed to be made. Never in history, and never will be. But I thought, well, you don't need another one of these. A Quiet Place is a perfect standalone movie. However, there is a lot of things you could tell that story. Like, you don't have to follow the Emily Blunt family anymore. You don't have to just follow them. It doesn't have to be the next chapter in their story. You could tell the story at the exact same time from a completely different group of people's point of view that have a completely different experience with these monsters, right? You could literally say, like, this, A Quiet Place 2 takes place in Poland, right? You could, with another family or a group of families that have formed a little colony that have figured out ways to survive this new reality with these monsters all over the world, right? You could say it takes place during the initial arrival of the monsters. You could say, like, whereas this movie kind of picks up like 2 months after the monster's arrival, you could say, hey, this one starts on day one. You could tell the origin of it, you could. Or you could tell the story 5 years later, where humanity has figured out, thanks to John Krasinski's family, they figured out what to do about the monsters, and now they're getting close to finally reclaiming. I mean, the thing is, there's a lot you could do that could potentially be worth watching. Wouldn't necessarily be good, it might be awful, might be terrible, but at least there's potential there. So I think there's a lot of possibilities. I think if we just narrow it down to saying the sequel would just be about Emily Blunt and her family, then you become more limited. But I don't think necessarily they're thinking that way. I think they could be thinking something a little more outside the box, in which case it opens up a lot more possibilities. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, still, I think the best movie of the year so far is A Quiet Place. Thunder Knight 19 writes, a movie needs to be made about this Movie Pass fiasco. Yeah, no kidding. You know what? Here's the big thing about the Movie Pass fiasco, okay? Forget the underlying thing. They tried something, it failed. Fine. That happens all the time. The only way you're ever going to guarantee, and I don't blame Movie Pass for trying. The only way you're ever going to guarantee yourself not to fail is not to try. You point to me to somebody or something that has never failed, I'll point to you at somebody who's never tried. Who never really tried something, or tried something different, or tried something big. Failure is a part of attempting something different. Failure is a part of attempting. So you should never be afraid of failure. Where it really gets sad and pathetic is this. I come from a background, I worked with AMC for a long time, right? And one of the things about AMC that always frustrated me, because I was in the world of YouTube videos, you cannot move glacier-like slow. You have to move with a quickness. You have to be, look, if a camera breaks, we need a new camera tomorrow. Whereas AMC's system was, first, you have to requisition a camera, and then we'll have a department that will put out bids. We'll put out calling for bids from different providers of what they could provide the camera for. We'll analyze the bids for 3 months, and then we'll make a purchase, and within maybe 4 months, you should have your camera. Screw that. I need a camera tomorrow, right? So it was just a little bit different. But here's the thing. AMC, in as much as it drove me crazy, this was a company that had a philosophy of crawl, walk, run. Everything AMC does is done with huge amounts of preparation, study, consideration, and thought. Tons of it. Layers and layers and layers of it. I've been telling you guys, a lot of people saying, oh, this AMC A-list thing is a response to Movie Pass. I'm telling you, AMC was studying doing this when I was still with them years before Movie Pass. That's how long they have been studying and studying and studying, doing market analysis, doing research, figuring out the possibilities, tweaking their ideas, blah, blah, blah. And then years later, they launched AMC A-List. So when they launch, they have a reasonable expectation of success because they've thought it all out. They've thought it all out. And if they're ever going to make a change to AMC A-List, it's going to be forever until the change comes. Why? Because AMC, like most good companies, will take their time. They will not have knee-jerk reactions. What have we seen from Movie Pass? Oh, guys, you can't see a movie more than once. Oh, wait, now you can see a movie more than once. Wait a minute, no, now you can't see a movie more than once now. Well, we're thinking this weekend there's some movies you can't see. Now we're thinking maybe you can't see any new movies in the first 2 weeks. Hey, guys, now we're going to increase our prices to $15. 1 week later, you know what? We changed our minds about the $15 things, and we changed our mind about that other thing, too. Now you can only watch 3 movies per month. Oh, wait a minute, another change. Now we're going to give you just a couple of movies that you can pick from per day. I mean, they've rolled out like 20 or 30 changes in the past 6 months. Some minor changes, some major changes. On one hand, you have a well thought out, very steady ship. On the other hand, you got a company that is just knee-jerk reacting to every little idea. They don't give anything thought. They never give anything any preparation. They never do any research. They never do any long-term strategizing. It's just like knee-jerk reaction, knee-jerk reaction, knee-jerk reaction, knee-jerk reaction. That's the story to me. To me, that's the story. And yeah, maybe at some point someday they'll make a story of it, but that's where they've really failed. To me, that's where they've really failed. Let's see here. Lloyd Bridgman writes, regarding DC's Joker, why would the MCU copy anything DC do? DC and Fox look at short-term money. MCU looks bigger picture. Different league, 17 billion. Nope, you're absolutely wrong about that. The only difference, look, it doesn't matter. Warner Brothers was thinking long-term. They were. The only difference is Iron Man was successful and hit with the audience. And Man of Steel, while I believe it's a better movie than Iron Man, Man of Steel did not. That's the only difference. That's it. Doesn't matter how long-term they were thinking. If Iron Man fell flat and didn't, if Jon Favreau wasn't able to execute that film the way he executed it, and if it didn't strike a chord with the audience the way that it did, none of this would be a conversation right now. None of it. I actually believe Man of Steel is a better movie than Iron Man. I'll debate you on that any day of the week. But I have to acknowledge that that's not the way the general audience responded to it. The general audience did not like it nearly as much as the general audience liked Iron Man. So any mythology or fairy tale theories we build around that, oh, this was all planned. No, it wasn't. Yeah, Kevin Feige and them, they had an idea about where they wanted to go. But so did Warner Brothers. The difference is one just worked and one didn't. That's all. And if you think there aren't things that the MCU can learn from DC, the first person who's going to tell you you're absolutely wrong about that is Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige is a student of the industry. Kevin Feige is a student of the art. And Kevin Feige is a student of the business. And I'm telling you right now, the first person who's going to tell you that this idea that, oh, MCU never looked to learn from something from Disney, the first person who's going to tell you that's a foolish statement is Kevin Feige himself. Kevin Feige will tell you himself that's a foolish statement. Because if you don't, we're not talking about copying, we're talking about learning from, right? We're talking about learning from. Look, failure is a part of business, right? So you'd be a fool not to try to look at when somebody's trying something that you're not, study what they're doing. And even if they fail, see if there's lessons you can learn from that. If they succeed, see if there's lessons you can learn from them. Just as other people are watching you and studying your successes and your failures, right? You need to be studying the success and failures of people around you as well. Kevin Feige does it. You're damn right he does it. And rightly so. So, absolutely, I guarantee you right now that Marvel is going to be paying very close attention to this experiment that Warner Brothers is doing, a very gutsy experiment that Warner Brothers is doing, trying these Elseworld one-shot stories, making true standalone superhero movies or super character movies or comic book character movies, whatever you want to say, that sits outside of the shared cinematic universe timeline. It's bold, it's daring, and I guarantee you, Alan Horn, Kevin Feige, the Russo brothers, James Gunn, Ryan Coogler, Bob Iger, they're all watching that very closely, and well they should. Because if it flops and it doesn't work, there are lessons to be learned. If it's a big success, and hell gets like awards consideration, there are lessons to be learned. And you can bet your ass that Feige, Horn, Iger are going to take whichever lessons come out, the lessons from the failures or the lessons from the success. They're going to take those lessons and they're going to implement them and weave them into the quilt that there is their overall prowess. They're going to, because that's what the smartest people in the room do. So yeah, this whole notion of DC versus Marvel, they would never look at DC. Nonsense. You don't know what you're talking about, my brother, my friend, my fellow film fan. That's nonsense. That's nonsense thinking. They were absolutely going to be studying this. And there's absolutely things they can learn from the DC universe. From some successes that they had, from some of their failures. But there are lessons to be learned, just as everybody else is looking at them and trying to learn lessons as well. Absolutely they are. Okay, anyway, that's just me. But again, that's what the smartest people in the room do. The people who think they smart go, no, we got the best plan. Let's ignore what everybody else is doing. Let's not see what we can learn from their attempts and failures and things that they're trying that they're not blah. No, we got our thing. Those are the people who think they're smart. But the true smartest people in the room are the ones who are standing quietly in the corner and watching everybody. And if you look really closely, those people are Kevin Feige, Bob Iger, and Alan Horn. They've got their own ideas, they've got their own directors, they got their own stories, but at the same time, while everybody else is talking, they're the ones who are sitting quietly in the corner of the room and watching. Understanding that other people are going to go through different experiences than them, and they're going to have different successes and different failures, but there's going to be universal lessons to learn in those successes and failures, and they're going to be the ones to learn them and benefit from them. So you're damn right they're keeping a close eye on this Joker movie. You're damn right they're keeping a very close eye on this Joker movie because it's something bold, it's something different, and because they're the smartest guys in the room. So you're damn right they're watching very closely. Anyway, Miko Suyanan writes, hey, John. Hello. Like you, I love Sneaker starring Robert Redford. My favorite was David Strathairn. I never quite know how to pronounce David Strathairn's name. So he's so lovable. I hope he does films where he's not a douche or a villain. Love your shows. Well, he does. He does do a bunch of things. Interesting thing. I was shocked. I remember a while ago I looked it up. I just assumed David had like 2 or 3 Oscar nominations. He's only got 1 Oscar nomination. Pardon me. And it was a well-deserved one. He was nominated for Best Actor for Good Night and Good Luck. I believe that was directed by George Clooney. Anyway. And he's wonderful in that movie. But look, David Strathairn, even when he's in bad movies, he's great in them. Right? He's been doing more television than anything lately. Like, I think he did Billions, and I think right now he's on The Expanse, which is a show all you guys are telling me to watch, including Robert Meyer Burnett's been telling me I need to watch that show, and I haven't watched it yet, but everybody's telling me it's great sci-fi, so I should check it out, so he's doing that. He's been doing an awful lot of television lately. So when I found out that he's in The Expanse, that just increased my desire that I got to check it out, and I got to cup. So that's going to be one of my next binging. I've started, my current binge right now is Better Call Saul, because I've never gotten caught up on that show. So I'm on season 1 right now. Once I get through Better Call Saul, my next binge is going to be The Expanse, so I can finally see what all you guys are talking about. All right. Darth Impact writes, hey, John, are you and Ann okay with all the wildfires in California? A little concerned. Yes, where we are, we're fine. There's none around us. You remember last year, though? If you guys follow me on social media, last year, we were pulling up to our house, and I put up my camera. It's like, look, and you saw the mountain that we're at the base of this mountain. This mountain was just on fire. I mean, it was crazy. But that one was a lot closer than any of these ones. We're really not anywhere close to any of the fires that are going on right now. So, yeah, we're perfectly fine. But thank you for your concern, and thank you for asking. Sharan Aurora writes, just reached season 7 of Supernatural, where Cass becomes God. I enjoyed that thing. Cass, that's to me... look, I already liked the Cass character before that, but that to me was the season where they really honed in on Cass and gave us, I mean, really, I think the character that work they do with him and the inner turmoil, the struggles, the temptations, all that kind of stuff of Cass, which really, it's through those types of trials that you really get a sense of the character of that character, right? Who that character really is. And I thought, while that season has some weaknesses, I thought the work they did with Cass in that season was probably the best they've ever done. And really laid the groundwork for our understanding of Cass as we move forward in the show. So, yeah, I'm actually a big fan of that season. I'm really glad you're up to that point. All right, let's see. Film Fansite writes, John, any news on your t-shirt merchandise? Here's the thing. So I signed up with the multi-channel network, as in most moderate-sized YouTube channels are part of an MCN. Not all of them, but a bunch are part of MCNs or multi-channel networks, right? There was Maker, there was Full Screen. There's literally like dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of these things. I signed up with one called BBTV. There's a few prominent movie YouTubers that are on BBTV, and I joined them. One of the allures to me was they had they have a partnership with this other company that help you make merchandise, right? And I thought, yes, I'm going to get going on merchandise now. I have found it to be so unintuitive, if that's the right word. The opposite, whatever the opposite of intuitive is, that's what this thing was. And I am a fairly technically sound guy. I can figure almost anything technically out. And I just tried for about 2 or 3 days to figure out how to make this thing work. It wouldn't accept this. It wouldn't do this, blah, blah, blah. And I just finally gave up on it. I said, this is not worth the hassle to me. And I thought we were going to get everything going. I had a few designs lined up that we're going to put on some t-shirts and hats and mugs and things like that people have been asking for. And I was all set to do it. And I just found it impossible to work with this company. It was just awful. So I gave up on it. Not that BBTV is awful. I'm just saying this whole merchandising thing they've got was just impossible to work with. So I gave up on it, unfortunately. Hopefully sometime soon I'll get rolling on that again, because I really do have some shirts I really want to make, and I know you guys have been asking for a lot. So keep your eyes open. Hopefully it'll be soon. All right, Sebastian writes, Oscars and editing. I saw Robert last night. I think the younger generation understands the value of editing due to devices and YouTube. They value it. You know, there is something to that, Sebastian. There is. I think, editing for the most part to average film fans has kind of been like speaking pig Latin. People don't understand it. Like, what's the deal? So what's editing? Whatever. And I don't get, like, the movie is truly put together in the edit. The story is, you produce all the elements when you shoot the movie. But it's not till you bring all those elements into the edit bay with the director and the editor that you truly start to tell the story. It's in the editing room that the story is told. And a lot of creative decisions are made there and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But I think for the most part, for generations, a lot of average moviegoers don't really get it. And that's fine. That's fine. But I think now that we live in an era where, every Mac has iMovie on it, so many people are making YouTube videos. Like, the accessibility for industry standard software, like Premiere Pro, like a lot of feature films are cut on Premiere Pro now. And that's for a long time was considered a consumer level product. But now the pros are using it and all that kind of stuff. I think you're onto something there, Sebastian, that this younger generation has a more developed sense of appreciation for editing, because a lot of them are into editing themselves now. With so many people doing, maybe they're not making feature films, but making their own YouTube videos, making their own videos to put up on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever. More and more people are getting their hands on editing these days. And when you get your hands on editing, that's when you start to appreciate how good real editors are, right? So I think we are maybe in a generation right now and developing that there are more and more, it's still a small percentage, but more and more percentage of the average film-going audience probably has a deeper appreciation for what editors do today than they have in years past. All right. Princess Jessa13 writes, Horn made such a big deal about firing Gunn that they could not rehire him to direct. Having Gunn involved in every other way is Horn's saving face. I mean, yeah, we've been talking about that a long time. Is about, look, all the other studios, including Warner Brothers, are lining up to offer James Gunn projects. They can't make him an offer until he settles his separation from Disney. Alan Horn, I mean, with Dave Bautista, with all the staff or all the cast of Guardians of the Galaxy calling for James Gunn to be reinstated, all this other kind of stuff. The fact of the matter is, he was never going to hire James Gunn back because he couldn't. When Alan Horn came out, who is one of the smartest men in the business, and no matter how smart you are, sometimes you crap the bed. We all do. I do, you do, everybody does. Alan Horn crapped the bed when he came out so early and made such a strong statement saying, we are severing all business relationships with James Gunn. That's what he said. We're severing all business relationships with James Gunn. He painted himself into a corner. He painted Disney into a corner. There's nothing you can do now. Even if, and I'm not saying Disney did want to hire him back. I'm not saying they did. I'm just saying even if they wanted to hire him back, they couldn't. James Gunn's definitive, unyielding statement made it impossible for that to happen. Now, I think it's rather hypocritical that if you're going to make a statement like that and say, we're severing all business relationships with you, okay, fine. Then use another script. Don't use the script then. You said you're severing all business relationships. So pay the man for the script that he wrote and then throw it away and go get a new script. Because you said you're severing all business relationships with him. And by keeping his script, you're still in business with him. By keeping a script, you still got to put him on as a writer of the film. You're going to have to still put him on as a producer of the film, all that kind of stuff. And you said you were severing all business relationships with him. So throw it away, pay the man his money, throw the script away, and go get a new one, or else you're being a hypocrite. Of course, the other way you could look at it is that it's a compromise. And compromise is a good thing. We should encourage compromise, right? So another way of looking at it is, well, okay, we're not going to hire him back, but we are willing to compromise. We will still use the script. We will still have him in our credits. We might even give him a producer credit. That's the compromise. So, and we made it our question of the day on the John Campea show the other day. Is it hypocritical of them to still use the script, or is it a fair compromise? I'm still torn, to be honest with you. Some days I think one, some days I think the other. Maybe it's a little bit of both. I don't know. But you're right. There was really never a chance. After he made that statement, there was never a real chance that they were going to bring him back. I mean, at one point I thought there was like a 5% chance that maybe this was all part of the plan, that they would fire him right away as a public display, and then a month or two later hire him back, saying, oh, we've sat down and had discussions. But even then I said it was only 5% chance. So, but realistically, you're right, Princess Jessa. There was no chance, really, that they were ever going to bring him back because Alan Horn painted himself into a corner. Frank C. Graham IV writes, after watching Rampage, which I was hesitant about, but it was entertaining, I feel as though a PG-13 can work for Venom. Rampage was violent as hell. Rampage really is violent as hell. There are a lot of people die in Rampage. A lot of big city destruction, giant monsters. And by the way, Rampage was much better than it had any business being. That is such a ridiculous concept for a movie. Such a ridiculous concept for a movie. Should never have worked. But you put Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in there, now you're going to get people's attention. And you know what? It was actually kind of fun. This should not ever be considered for any kind of Oscars, but it was kind of fun. I had fun with it. It's ridiculous. It's nonsensical, but it's fun. And I had a good time with it. It's just a movie that was much better than it had any business being. Not a great movie, but certainly an entertaining one, and one that was better than it had any business being. But you're right, it had a hell of a lot of violence and a lot of people dying, and I think if you handle it right, with the MPAA, you can get away with a lot of violence. As long as you don't have red blood splattering everywhere, you can do just about everything. You can have guys shooting each other in the head. If you don't show blood splattering, you can still do that. And there's a lot you can get away with. Less so with sex and language, but with violence, they give you a lot of leeway with violence when it comes there. As long as there aren't certain lines you cross, like just showing a lot of blood. Like, how many times did we see Wolverine, like, skewer somebody, even in the PG-13 ones? Many times. Just not a lot of blood splatter, so it's perfectly fine. I think you can get away with it. Look, all other things being equal, I've said this before, I'll say it again. All other things being equal, I would rather Venom be rated R. Obviously. But if it's not rated R, it's not the end of the world. You can still do a hell of a lot. And let's face it, none of us need Venom to have a lot of sex or nudity or a lot of language. None of us need that in a Venom movie. As long as they can do the violence, I think there's some leeway there. I still think it can work. Let's see. Film Fansite writes the final question we're going to have today, who writes, John, what are your personal top 3 favorite YouTube channels to watch? Who does John Campea follow and why? Keep the awesome. Well, I'd say the guys I follow the most are. Number 1 is Twitch. And Twitch, which is Leo Laporte's channel. I've been a big Leo Laporte fan for years and years and years and years. Like, just forever. I mean, Leo Laporte, the two guys who really influenced me the most to get started in podcasting was a Toronto sports radio station called the Fan 590 with Bob McCown. Bob McCown is one of the best sportscasters of all time. But he does a Canadian show, so a lot of you guys have never heard of him, but he's just simply one of the best. And actually, I'll confess here, my whole greetings and salutations, I stole that from Bob McCowan. And so when I started my first show, I led off my show with greetings and salutations. So everybody thinks that's my thing. I actually learned that from Bob McCowan. I mean, everybody's heard of greetings and salutations, but to lead off your show with, that's something Bob McCowan used to do. And he was one of my big influences in getting started. So that greetings and salutations, I got that from Bob McCowan on the Fan 590 way back in the day. But the other was Leo Laporte, who does all technology stuff. Like he did This Week in Tech. He's got, now his network has tons and tons and tons of shows. So I watch him a lot. Another guy I follow a lot is Marquise Brownlee. And I just had to pull up his channel because I always forget. He goes by the handle. I always get the letters wrong. He goes by the handle of MKBHD. He is a great tech guy, mostly known for doing phones. Like he does new cell phone reviews, and he's great at it. But he's just got a great approach. He knows how to edit his videos. Watching one of his videos, you're seeing a narrative. You're not just hearing a review, you're seeing a narrative. And I've always appreciated the way he does that. So I'm really big on his tech stuff as well. What would be the third one? Honestly, it would be another tech one. I've got about 5 or 6 other tech ones that I follow. I'll just leave it at 2 for now. Those are 2 that I really still follow and watch a lot. But yeah, most of the YouTube channels, most of the YouTube stuff I watch is mostly tech stuff because I am an absolute tech junkie. An absolute tech junkie. So I watch a lot of tech YouTube stuff. Okay, and that is it for today, guys. That's all the questions we have right now. Hey, by the way, guys, listen. There may be some of you out there thinking, wait a minute. I sent in one that still hasn't been answered. Don't worry. I still got a bunch of questions in the queue to use on future companion videos. So don't worry. If you still have a question waiting, you'll probably see it pop up over in the companion videos we'll have in the next couple of days. But we just got a whole bunch of them out of the way now for that. All right, guys, that will do it for me. I hope you guys had an awesome weekend, whatever you did with it. I hope you relaxed, recharged, and ready to face the week ahead of you. Don't forget the John Campea Show is every morning this week at 9 a.m. Make sure you join us for that. And, of course, open mic in the afternoons at 2 p.m. That's all in Pacific Standard Time. And that'll do it for me, guys. Thanks a lot for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.